Namaste, hello, and welcome back to another video on the Metaphysical Library. My name is Awhona, and in today's video, I'm going to share my tentative TBR for the Spring Readathon. Now, the Spring Readathon is a month-long readathon which will be running all along April, and it has been hosted by Nasya from the Dark Academia Book Club. I will leave her channel links in the description box below, and because this Spring Readathon details were shared in Discord, of course you can cross-check with Nasya's Dark Academia Book Club announcement channel, wherein she has given the Discord link, so you can definitely click on it, and in case if you're interested, you can join the book club as well. So do please join me further in this video. So now let's come down to the readathon itself. Now, Nasya has created a very beautiful bingo board, which I'll be leaving or putting up over here for all of you to cross-check. And our primary requisite is to get 5 in a row, or 5 prompts in a row as a bingo, so it can be anywhere across the board. And what I have done is I've created a TBR in which the entire bingo board can be covered, because we are allowed to double up on the prompts, so with the books, of course. So the books that I've chosen will be fulfilling 2 prompts across the entire bingo board. So the first book which I've chosen is called Spring Garden by Tomoka Shibasaki. And this particular board fulfills 2 prompts, which I have in front of me. The entire bingo board is in front of me, so I'll be referring to it from here on. So this particular book is going to fulfill a book that mentions spring and a book that starts with an S. So from the back of the book, it reads as: "He did come to realize that it was a mistake to grind up his father's remains with such a thing. The mortar was lined with narrow grooves, a little too perfect for ashes to get stuck in. Divorced and cut off from his family, Taro lives alone in one of the few occupied apartments in his block, a block that is to be torn down as soon as the remaining tenants leave. Since the death of his father, Taro keeps to himself, but is soon drawn into an unusual relationship with the women upstairs, Nishi, as she passes on the strange tale of the sky blue house next door. First discovered by Nishi in the little-known photo book Spring Garden, the sky blue house soon becomes a focus for both Nishi and Taro of what is lost and what has been destroyed, and what hope may lie in the future for both of them if only they realize it." So that's the first book that I'll be reading to fulfill both the prompts. Now, the second book that I've chosen is a very popular book, which is Alice Hoffman's Practical Magic. And I've chosen this book because first, it fulfills the prompt a book in a series. This is actually in a series. There is a prequel to this, and this is the second book, and it also has been converted into a movie. I mean, there is a movie which is based on it. So these two prompts are fulfilled with this particular book. So from the back of the book, it reads as a delicious fantasy of witchcraft and love in a world where gardens smell of lemon verbena and happy endings are possible. As children, sisters Gillian and Sally were forever outsiders in their small New England town, teased, taunted, and shunned for the sense of magic that seemed to hang in the air around them. All Gillian and Sally ever wanted was to get away. Years later, tragedy brings the sisters back together. They'll find that no matter what else happens, they'll always have each other. An enchanting tale of love, forgiveness, and family, Practical Magic is one of Alice Hoffman's best-loved novels and the basis of the classic movie. So there's a movie which I happen to possess as well on DVD, so I'll be watching that as well. So that will be for the two prompts, a book in series and a book that's a movie. So now the third book that I've chosen is a Korean story which has been translated by Janet Hong, and it's called The Impossible Fairy Tale by Han Yujoo. I absolutely love the cover of this book, and this particular book fulfills the prompt, a book that, or a story that takes place in a school, and which is not originally written in English because this has been translated from Korean. So from the back of the book, it reads as a chilling, wildly original novel from a major new voice from South Korea. The Impossible Fairy Tale is the story of two unexpected grade school girls. Mia is lucky. She's spoiled by her mother and her two fathers. She gloats over her exotic imported color pencils and won't be denied a coveted sweater. Then there is a child who by contrast is neither lucky or unlucky. She makes so little an impression that she seems not to even merit a name. At school, their fellow students, whether lucky or luckless or unlucky, seem consumed by a murderous rage. Adults are nearly invisible, and the society the children create on their own is marked by cruelty and soul-crushing hierarchies. Then one day, the child sneaks into the classroom and after hours and adds ominous sentences to her classmates' notebooks. This sinister act unlocks a series of events that ends in a horrible violence. In this dreamy, hypnotic, and deeply unsettling novel, Han creates or casts an uncanny glow over the innocence of childhood and ethics of art making. Brilliantly rendered in Jan Hong's translation, Han's prose makes us question where life ends and book begins. So that will be the third book that I'll be reading. Now, the next book that I've chosen to read is called Disfigured, on fairy tales, disability, and making space. And this book fulfills two prompts, which are the non-fiction prompt and an audiobook prompt, because I'll be listening to this instead of reading it because it's on audiobook. Now, this has been written by Amanda Leduc, and the narrator for this audiobook is Amanda Barker, and from the back it reads as, fairy tales shape how we see the world, so what happens when you identify more with the beast than the beauty? If every disabled character is mocked and mistreated, how does the beast ever imagine a happily ever after? Amanda Leduc looks at fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm to Disney, showing us how they influence our expectations and behavior, and linking the quest for disability rights to new kinds of stories that celebrate difference. Leduc peels the flesh from the fairy tales we grew up loving and strips them down to their skeletons to skillfully reveal how they influence the way we think about disability. She contrasts the stories we have with the ones we wish we had, incorporating her own life. Her wisdom lands with a punch in the heart, leaving a sizable dent that reshapes how we see tales we've been telling for centuries. She also, and this is the best part of it, suggests how we tell new fairy tales, how we can forge new stories. So this is a very interesting book, and I'm looking forward to listening to it. So now the next book that I have chosen to read is called Forests of a Thousand Lantern by Julie C. Dow, and this is the Rise of the Empress novel. And this particular book fulfills two of the prompts, which is animal on the cover, so we do have the snake, and also fairy tale or mythology retelling. This is the tale of the evil queen of the fairy tale Snow White. So from the back of the book, it reads as, destined for greatness, bound for ruin. Zifeng is beautiful, the cards foretell her fate. She is meant to be empress of all Feng Lu, but only if she embraces the darkness buried deep within her soul. Down one path lies obscurity, the other leads to glory, yet not without great sacrifice. A lover spurned, cruel magic exploited. One question, one choice reigns above all the others. Is the price of the throne too high? So this is a retelling of the evil queen's rise in Snow White, and it's a Chinese retelling, and I'm really looking forward to reading this book. Now, the next book that I have chosen to read is the prequel for Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. So this is an author born in spring. Now, because I'm in India, so obviously spring for me is March, not April. Of course, April starts the summer season. So I chose an author who is born during March, and that's Alice Hoffman. And this is the prequel to Practical Magic, which is magic lessons. Every story has its beginning, every rule has its purpose. Now, from the back of the book, it reads as, for centuries, the women of the Owens family have been cursed. Any man who loves an Owens woman will die. It begins with a baby abandoned in a snowy English field in the 1600s. Gentle Hannah Owens takes the baby in, and as the child grows, Hannah teaches little Maria about the unnamed arts. Maria has a gift for them, a gift that may well prove her undoing. When Maria is abandoned by the man she loves, she invokes the curse that will haunt her family for centuries, because magic has rules and they must be obeyed. So I have watched this in the movie, but I'm pretty curious about what the story actually is. So looking forward to reading this. Now, the next prompt is to read a graphic novel. So for this, I've got a book which is somewhere between a graphic novel and a comic, and that is Sufi comics, The Wise Fool of Baghdad by Mohammed Vakil, Mohammed Arif Vakil, and Rahil Mohsin. And from the back of the book, it reads as, find wisdom in foolishness. What can a man dressed in rags and ostensibly mad teach us about life? Everything, as it turns out. Balul, who lives in Baghdad circa the 8th century AD, feigned madness to escape the oppression of the ruling class. Now, free of the burden of normalcy, he dispensed wisdom in strange and amusing ways. The Wise Fool of Baghdad is a collection of these true stories, richly illustrated in the Turkish-Iranian miniature style. Every story is followed by sacred verses of the Quran and traditional sayings inscribed in the Arabic by Mukhtar Ahmad, one of India's finest Islamic calligraphies. So at the end, it reads as, get the book. In the crazy times we live in, you'll probably need a lunatic to make sense of it all. So that seems to be very interesting, and I'm quite curious about it. So that will be the next book that I'll be reading. Now, our next prompt is to read a poem or read a book of poems. So for this, I have chosen to read Beauty is a Verb, which has been put together by Sheila Black, and it has been edited by Jennifer Bartlett and Michael Northern. And the actual name of the book is called Beauty is a Verb, the New Poetry of Disability. And the poems in this book are all by disabled people. And from the back of the book, it reads as, Beauty is a Verb is a groundbreaking anthology of disability poetry, essays on disability, and writings on the poetics of both. Crip poetry, disability poetry, poems with disability. This is where the poetry and disability intersect, overlap, and collide to make peace. For the reader of good poetry interested in diversity of American expression, this anthology provides an understanding of the history and contemporary vitality of the poetry and the poetics of the non-normative body. 3 sections, 4 mothers and 4 fathers, the disability poetics movement, and a language of the new embodiment gather the poems and the statements on poetics together in a meaningful whole. So this is a very interesting collection of poems on disability, which I am also reading for another readathon on another channel. I will try and leave a link to that particular video in which I have spoken about my TBR, which does include this book, in the description box below, as well as in the overhead cards above. So if any of you are looking to read or to participate in that particular readathon, which focuses on disability, you can definitely check with that video. Now, the next book that I've chosen is very interesting, and that's Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller. I absolutely love the cover of this book, and this particular book fulfills two of the prompts. The first is a dark cottagecore vibes, because this does take place in a cottage and it is dark, and it is also a gothic novel. So from the back of the book, it reads as, what if the life you have always known were taken away from you in an instant? What would you do to get it back? Twins Jeannie and Julius have always been different from other people. At 51 years, they still live with their mother Dot in rural isolation and poverty. Inside the walls of their old cottage, they make music, and in the garden they grow and sometimes kill everything they need for sustenance. And when Dot suddenly dies, threats to their livelihood starts raining down. Jeannie and Julius would do anything to preserve their small sanctuary against the perils of the outside world, even as their mother's secrets begin to unravel, putting everything they thought they knew about their life at stake. Unsettled Ground is a heart-stopping novel of betrayal and resilience, love and survival. It is a portrait of life on the fringes of society that explores with dazzling emotional power how we can build our lives on the broken foundations and spin light from darkness. So that's a very interesting plot, and I'm looking forward to getting to this. Now, the next book that I've chosen to read is called Brother's Keeper by Julie Lee, and this particular book actually fulfills two prompts. The first is a book with a map, and the second is a new to you author. So Julie Lee is a new to me author, and this book does contain a map, and here's the map. So from the jacket of this book, it reads as, can two children escape North Korea on their own? North Korea, 1950. 12-year-old Sora Park and her family live under an iron set of rules. No travel without a permit, no criticism of the government, no absences from communist meetings, repeat slogans, don't trust your neighbors, don't spend your mind, you are being watched. There is no hope for escape until war breaks out between North and South Korea. Suddenly there is chaos and everyone is fleeing. The Park's plan to get to freedom is simple. They will walk hundreds of miles from their tiny mountain village to the South Korean city of Busan. But when a bombing changes everything, Sora must get herself and her 8-year-old brother Young-soo to South Korea alone. Across rivers, across mountains, around enemy soldiers and border guards, and even through Pyongyang itself, and all starving of frostbite and starvation, can two children survive 300 miles of war zone in winter? Haunting, timely, and beautiful, this harrowing novel, inspired by the experiences of the author's mother, offers readers a glimpse into a vanished time and a closed nation. So this is a very interesting book. In fact, I wanted to read this for one of the readathons which has just gone by in March, which is Read-a-thon, but this book did come out, arrive by post a little late, so I could not include this, but it's something that I'm really looking forward to read. Now, the next book that I plan on reading is to fulfill the prompt, a book which mentions Persephone, and for this I have chosen to read Persephone First Contact by William Ralston. Now, this is a sci-fi book, and I really don't know much about the book, but from the back of the book it reads as, alien encounter story written from a Christian worldview and influenced by the classic science fiction of the 20th century. A survey ship exploring intersections between the regions of space discovers that alien ships are searching the same set of intersections. The crew and all of humanity behind them must find a way to make a place for the human race in a galaxy already occupied by a number of more technologically advanced races. Discovering an alien race also forces the programmer and the scientist who first discovers the presence of actual alien race or life to discover the human race as well. They must find a way to survive other encounters and threats such as officers, non-technical conversation with other crewmen, members of the opposite sex, physical exercise, publicity, and politicians. Now, the fact is I couldn't make out much from the description, but I do hope that it's a good book, because I haven't found any reviews on them, whether it's good or bad, but it is a sci-fi and it has been recently released on the 15th of December 2021, so hoping that it would be very interesting and looking forward to reading it. Now, the next book that I've chosen fulfills two prompts, which is Flower on the Cover, a book with flower on the cover, and a book which is a least favorite genre of mine. So this is a romance novel with flowers on the cover, and romance is my least favorite genre because I really don't read romance, and I actually don't find it very interesting. So however, I am trying to read a cozy romance story, which is called Brood, a cozy coffee shop romance. And I am reading this just for this readathon. I usually don't read romance at all. Now, from the back of the book, now this book has been written by Heather Sage, of course, and from the back it reads as, "For Harper Caldwell, family is the glue that has bound her life together since the death of her the death of her father. So when her brother announced that he wanted to pursue his dream of opening a coffee shop, she left her own aspirations to help him achieve his goal. Harper tells herself the work is rewarding, but the days drag on, and somewhere she feels she is cheating herself out of her own life. The monotony of her routine takes a twist when she and her brother's friend Andy, the arrogant, successful owner of the burger joint across the street, shares an accidental kiss. She finds herself becoming distracted as their friendship becomes a relationship, and that new-found passion reminds her of what she has left behind. But when a shocking deceit leaves her questioning those closest to her, Harper has to decide whether her heart has been fooling her all along." So that is the next book, which is fulfilling two prompts, and I just hope that I'll be able to get through it. Now, the next book that I plan on reading is a very famous book, and this is The Castle of Otranto, a Gothic story, and it's a classic as well as it is a horror. So this will be fulfilling those two prompts on the bingo board. And from the back, it reads as, the novel tells of Manfred, Prince of Otranto, whose fear of an ancient prophecy sets him on a course of destruction. After the grotesque death of his only son Conrad on his wedding day, Manfred determines to marry the bride-to-be. The Virgin Isabella flees through a castle riddled with secret passages, chilling coincidences, ghostly visitations, arcane revelations, and violent combat combined in a heady mix that terrified the novel's first readers. So this is famed to be the translation of a mysterious Italian tale from the darkest Middle Ages, and this will be the next book that I'll be reading, because I've never really got to this book. I did plan to come to this book later on, but hopefully I should be able to get to this in this particular readathon. Now, the last book that I plan on reading is called Sisters of the Vast Black, and this fulfills two of the prompts which are left on the bingo board, which are a book that has been on your TBR for the longest, which I have not read so far, and that is absolutely true for this book, and it is green on the cover. And this particular book is Sisters of the Vast Black, A Lady of Endless Worlds, Book 1 by Lena Rada. And from the back of the book, it reads as, years ago, old Earth sent forth sisters and brothers into the vast dark of the prodigal colonies, armed only with crucifixes and iron faith. Now the Sisters of the Order of Saint Rita are on an interstellar mission of mercy aboard Our Lady of Impossible Constellation, a living, breathing ship which seems determined to develop a will of its own. When the Order receives a distress call from a newly formed colony, the sisters discover that the bodies and souls in their care and that of the galactic diaspora are in danger, and not from the void beyond, but from the nascent central governance and the church itself. So, this is very interesting, and I have not yet read it. It has been on my TBR for quite some time, so I just hope that I'll be able to get to this book this time. So those are some of the books that I plan on reading, and I understand it's a bit ambitious, but let's try. And also that brings us to the end of this video. Do let me know if you have read any of these books, or if you're interested in reading any of them. We could definitely do a buddy read for some of them. And do leave your comments in the comment section below so that I can get back to you on your comments. And with that, I will be wrapping it up from here. So I'll be back with another video next week. So till then, take care, have a good reading week ahead, and namaste.